Some victims vanish so completely that decades pass before anyone learns their name. This is the story of Karen Vergata, a woman lost in 1996 and only to be found again nearly 30 years later. Karen Vergata was born in Roslyn and raised in the quiet community of Glen Head, Long Island. She attended North Shore High School, and as a young woman, she became a mother, giving birth to two sons, Gary and Eric, who would be 35 and 33 years old in 2024. But adulthood brought struggles that Karen could not outrun. Drug addiction cost her the custody of her children, who were eventually adopted by a couple in Nesconset. From there, Karen's life unraveled. A pattern of drug arrest, instability, and eventually escorting as a means of survival. February 14th, 1996, Valentine's Day, the last day anyone would ever speak to Karen Vergata. She was living and working on West 45th Street in Manhattan and had been working as an escort. Her father, Dominic Vergata, spoke to her that same day, his birthday. He later said she sounded troubled. Karen made the call collect from jail. After that conversation, Dominic never heard from her again. As the months passed with no contact, he became increasingly desperate. He tried to file a missing persons report with the NYPD, but was told he couldn't. Karen was an adult, and adults are allowed to disappear. Dominic refused to give up. He contacted multiple police departments and even hired a private investigator. Still no trace of his daughter. 2 months after Karen vanished, on April 20th, 1996, a horrifying discovery was made along Blue Point Beach on Fire Island. A pair of severed legs, wrapped carefully in plastic, washed ashore. Investigators noted several scars, a 3.5-inch scar on the right leg, smaller scars near the ankle, and a surgical scar on the left. Her toenails were painted red, fresh from a recent pedicure. They had no name for her, only a label, Fire Island Jane Doe. This was the first sign that something deeply sinister was happening on Long Island. In 1997, a Suffolk County homicide detective contacted Dominic. They had found a body and needed DNA. Dominic gave a sample. Throughout 1998, he reached out to police departments, social service agencies, correctional facilities across the tri-state area, and anyone who might have seen Karen. Years later, in 2012 and 2015, he hired investigators again, and again, nothing. By 2011, Fire Island Jane Doe was added to NamUs as case UP9098, still unidentified. Then in April 2011, another piece of the puzzle surfaced. Search teams investigating the Gilgo Beach murders found a human skull off Ocean Parkway, near Tobay Beach. It was determined to belong to the same woman as the legs found in 1996, but her torso, her hands, and most of her remains were still missing. A composite sketch was released. Still, no one recognized her. Jane Doe number 7 remained unnamed. In 2015, after nearly 2 decades of searching, Dominic Vergata filed for a death certificate for Karen. On October 24, 2017, the state declared her legally dead, listing her date of death as February 14, 1999, 3 years to the day after she disappeared. Dominic still held on to hope, but it was fading. In 2022, the investigation took a monumental leap forward. Forensic evidence from the Fire Island remains was sent to Othram, a cutting-edge DNA laboratory in Texas. There, scientists used forensic-grade genome sequencing, creating a detailed DNA profile. The FBI's forensic genealogy team used that profile to develop leads that finally identified Fire Island Jane Doe. She was Karen Vergata, a 34-year-old woman from Manhattan who vanished in 1996. After nearly 30 years, the mystery was over. 2 months later, in December 2022, Karen's father, Dominic, passed away. He lived just long enough to finally know the truth. On August 4, 2023, authorities publicly announced that Fire Island Jane Doe was officially identified as Karen Vergata. She became one of the many victims whose remains were discovered along the remote stretches of Ocean Parkway, a haunting chapter in Long Island's darkest history. In August 2024, Karen's sons began the process of claiming her remains. Their hope was simple: to finally cremate her and lay her to rest with her family. For nearly 3 decades, her name was lost, her story silenced, her identity unknown. But today, the world finally knows who she was. Karen Vergata, a mother, a daughter, a woman who deserved far better